The Athletics NFL draft guru, Dane Brugler, who is one of my favorite people to follow in the pre-draft process, just put out his top 100 prospects for the 2025 draft. Now, I'm not going to go through all 100. I'm going to do the top 50 because I think I might lose some of you once we get to the 60s and 70s of players. But I do think it's important to look beyond just the top 5 guys in this draft, because if Cleveland makes a deal and sends Myles Garrett somewhere, they likely acquire an extra first rounder. So now the Browns are picking like 15th or 25th or something like that. So we got to look at guys who could be targets at that range. Plus, Cleveland picks 33rd overall, first pick in round number 2. So who are some guys that could slip out of round 1 into round 2? But if you are just happy to be back in round 1, even though it's not under the circumstances we would have liked after a 3-win season, it's still nice to be a part of the pre-draft process, because the last couple of years were just a snooze fest, especially when the Browns would trade their second-round pick away for Elijah Moore or move back to get Martin Emerson. It's like, we waited long enough, and now we got to wait even longer. So if you're with me, like today's video. Here are the picks the Browns are working with. They have a lot of them, including like 5 in round 6, I think I have it, and the Mr. Irrelevant pick, which will be fun to keep an eye on. But most notably, they have 4 picks in the top 100, and if you kind of squeeze that 103 in there early in round 4, they essentially have 5 picks in the top 100, a very early round 4 pick. So this is what Barry is working with when it comes to his best draft capital. So here's Dane Brugler's big board. We'll go through it from 1 to 50, starting with Travis Hunter, number 1 player. He was the number 1 player on Brugler's big board back in November, midway through the college football season, and he has stayed at the number 1 position. He is a good overall size, 6'1", 185 pounds, so that's, pretty average size when it comes to an NFL DB or a wide receiver, but we all know his just playmaking abilities is the best way to put it, right? And his versatility of playing on offense and defense. And so there is a lot to like about Hunter as a football player. He is just someone that you would want to have 22 of on a team, because he can do a lot of things very, very well. And you look at his numbers as a receiver, 1,200 yards last year, 15 touchdowns, nearly 100 grabs. And he's just not only a receiving threat, but he's also a great defender too. 4 interceptions, a forced fumble, 15 pass breakups. The best NFL draft analysts keep going back and forth as to whether or not he's a better receiver or corner. He's that good at both of those positions. So there is a lot to like about Hunter's profile and his makeup going into the pre-draft process here. And I, for one, I do like Travis Hunter, but I've just got this annoying little devil on my shoulder, and I want to flick him off. So someone do it for me, because when he gets to the NFL, I don't think he's going to play both ways. I think it's just, I'm not trying to doubt the kid, but NFL playbooks are massive. And to learn one of them as a rookie is challenging enough. To learn offense and defense, I think, is just simply unrealistic. So if he's only going to play one way, ask yourself, if you only knew Travis Hunter as the wide receiver from Colorado, would he be someone that goes first or second overall? You haven't seen a receiver go first or second overall since Justin Blackmon out of Oklahoma State, right? Am I forgetting someone else? I don't think so. So how about corner? Is Travis Hunter, the corner, good enough to go first or second overall? I don't even think he's my favorite corner in this draft. I like Will Johnson out of Michigan a little bit more at that position. But when you add in the ability to play both sides, maybe that's enough to make him worth the second overall pick. And so if the Browns have a package of like, we're going to use him on defense and we're going to use him on like 15 plays on offense, okay, like that can kind of sell me. But if the plan is, hey, we're just going to play you at corner, now I'm not so convinced. Moving along here, let's talk about the next guy that's coming up on the big board here, and that's Abdul Carter. So we all know his smoke and hype and whatnot going into this process right now. A 12-sack campaign for the Nittany Lions last year. 4 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles. I don't think we need to spend too much more time learning about Carter as a prospect because at this point, I think everyone's very familiar with him and his overall profile. This is probably your best possible Myles Garrett replacement. If they end up trading him, which I think they will, but the Browns say they aren't trading him. But if push comes to shove and they do move on from him, then this is a great way to not, I don't want to say replace because you're not going to get someone like Myles. You're just not. I'm sorry to be a doubter, but no. But if you get someone who's 85% of Myles Garrett, that might be making the best of a bad situation. So those are the top 2 guys right there. Then it's Jalon Walker. I've not spent enough time talking about him or researching him, but he comes in at number 3, followed by Mason Graham, and then we've got Ashton Jeanty. 3 through 5, I don't see as viable targets at number 2, but if they acquire an extra first rounder, that could be someone worth looking at closer. Will Campbell, left tackle out of LSU, same goes for him. At number 2, no. But if they have number 2 and number 10, I can get behind Will Campbell at number 10. Not interested in any of the receivers in round 1 this year. To be honest, I don't think any of them are worth first-round picks. Next up is a player that's really risen in this lead up to the draft. It's Mizzou's right guard, right tackle, Armand Membou. He's a good size, fast-moving player for the position. Number 9, it's Shemar Stewart. He is one of the best athletically given players in this entire pre-draft process. But for me, the concern with Stewart out of A&M is 3 straight seasons of 1.5 sacks. This is not a defensive tackle. This is not some nose tackle with pass rush upside. This is a defensive end who has all the traits in the world, but they just can't seem to translate to sacks. And I need, not a want, but a need production at the edge rusher spot when we're talking round 1 guys. So don't be surprised if the Browns fall in love with Stewart because of his size and speed, but I'm not falling in love. At 10, it's Tyler Warren from Penn State. I suspect the Browns will find a tight end later in the draft with Aikens a free agent and Njoku has 1 year left on that extension. He's getting up there in the age column too. At number 11, it's another tight end, Colston Loveland. At 12, it is Mike Green, edge rusher out of Marshall, led the FBS in sacks last year. Will Johnson climbs in next, 13th out of Michigan. Johnson is one of my favorite overall prospects in this draft class. When they inevitably do a redraft 2 to 3 years from now, Will Johnson is someone who's going to go from being the 8th to 12th overall pick to going top 5 in a redraft. I'm just that confident in him as a playmaker, the athleticism, and the ball skills that go along with it. Unfortunately, he missed a lot of time in 2024 with a turf toe injury, but I'm going off the 2023 film. And that 2023 film is telling me this guy is going to be an absolute game wrecker at the next level. Moving on here. Malachi Stark, safety out of Georgia. No, thank you. Not for the Browns, at least. And then Cam Ward. We get our first quarterback on Brugler's big board. It comes in at number 15. Let's talk about Ward just overall as a prospect. An absolute cannon of an arm, which I know that cliche gets thrown out there a lot. He truly does have a bazooka attached to his right shoulder. He can make all of the throws you want from different angles, off platform, rolling to his left, throwing across the field. Not everyone can do that. Not at least a high enough velocity where it's not an easy pick for an NFL DB. He can do that for you. Plus, I do like the experience. Look how successful Jaden Daniels was. And I think a big reason was he was in college learning a lot. Instead of just going to the NFL the first opportunity he could. And similar for Ward here, starts off in Carte Ward, and then he transfers to Washington State and off to the U. And I think he's going to carry a lot of the valuable things he's learned through all those years in college football to the NFL. But I'm not getting my hopes up, so to speak, on Cam Ward for the Browns because I think he's going to go number 1. The Titans, they need a quarterback. So do the Browns. but they have the first overall pick. And I don't think they're going to pass on taking Ward for Carter or Hunter. Not that those would be bad players or to take, but Ward is worth the gamble in my eyes. But it would be a gamble because I was kind of curious. This is the first quarterback on Brugler's big board. The last couple of years, the guys taken first overall. Where were they on Brugler's big board? Caleb Williams last year was number 1 on the big board. Bryce Young the year before, number 1. Trayvon Walker, number 4. Trevor Lawrence, number 1. Joe Burrow, number 2. Furthest behind is Walker at 4. This would be uncharted waters. The first overall pick being someone who the consensus from a lot of NFL draft experts is not even a top 10 player in this class. I know how valuable the quarterback position is, but also the first overall pick is very valuable too. So I thought you guys would at least enjoy that kind of nugget and a fun fact of, man, is this the latest a first overall pick has ever appeared on a big board for just one person? Moving on to 16, it is Michael Williams. He missed some time this past season for the Bulldogs. The production did not take a big jump, but unfortunately, missed some time for the Bulldogs with an ankle injury, which led to some down production. But he did come to play at the end of the year in the SEC championship game, and he's got great traits as well. Josh Simmons, offensive tackle from Ohio State. I want to pause here and talk about him for just a second because this is a target for me that if the Browns climb back into round 1 via Myles Garrett trade, he could be of some interest. He unfortunately missed the second half of the Buckeyes national championship season, but the first half of the season, he looked very vital to this team. And that was evident after he went down. Ohio State had a tough time figuring out a new plan at left tackle for this O-line. So Simmons is someone that I like if the Browns were to get another first-round pick somewhere in the middle to try and finally answer the problems they had at left tackle for the last half decade. At number 18 now, it's Tyler Booker. He's probably the best interior offensive lineman in this class, followed by DT Derek Harmon. Started off at Michigan State, goes to Eugene, shows a lot of pass rush upside, which teams love from the interior. Then it's Luther Burden. The Browns are not going receiver in round 1. 21, we have James Pierce out of Tennessee. He was supposed to be the first overall pick in this draft if you go off of way too early drafts from the end of last year's draft. The production just wasn't quite there, but I think there are some fair excuses of very few snap counts, very few snaps in the early goings of the year because Tennessee was blowing everyone out. But he generated a ton of pressure, just couldn't quite take the quarterback down. Calvin Banks, Texas left tackle. He's probably my least favorite of the round 1 tackles. When they played Michigan and Georgia, their 2 toughest tests from a defensive line standpoint, kind of got bullied. Jahad Campbell, Alabama linebacker. The Browns aren't going linebacker. And Emeka Egbuka, same thing. Not that I dislike the player, but I don't see the Browns going wide receiver in round 1. And now we get to the entire Cleveland Browns fan base's favorite player right now, Shedeur Sanders. 25th on Dane Brugler's big board. So, yeah, I don't think it's crazy for people like me that say they shouldn't go Sanders at number 2 when you look at where he ranks in the entire draft class. Of course, quarterback position is more important than the safety position, but, man, 25, that's a long ways down for someone going 2 overall. I just don't quite, I don't want to say see it because I do see a lot of pros in Sanders' game. Great decision making, and that's important. Don't get me wrong. He's got Tom Brady in his corner, so who am I to say I know more about the quarterback position than Tom Brady? But there's a lot of smoke around Sanders for it being February. I don't want to say this is my bold prediction that he's going to be the pick, but I feel like it's really trending that way. There's a lot of momentum behind Sanders going to the Browns. Between the top 2 quarterbacks in this class, who would you pick? Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders? I would go with Cam Ward, but I think Cam Ward is just like a diet Jameis Winston. and Shedeur is a diet Geno Smith. That might age horribly, but that's my honest opinion. We'll kind of fast forward a little bit or speed things up here because I'm probably losing a few of you right now. Kenneth Grant, that's a defensive tackle that a lot of people like. I don't think the Browns should go interior defensive line with their first draft selection in back-to-back drafts, given their other needs. Matthew Golden is one of my favorite receivers. I think people are sleeping on him. Another good safety out of South Carolina, Nick Imanwori. He's got great ball skills and instincts. Walter Nolan, nearly 300 pounds and had six and a half sacks. That's what the Browns wanted Siaka Ika to be. Unfortunately, he just was 300 pounds and no sacks. And then we have the Boston College edge rusher, Donovan Izuruboku. Probably got that one wrong, but he's got really good production, good athleticism. He just has a little bit of a smaller frame. I don't think he can play defensive end in a 4-3 defense. He needs to be an outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense. Next up, it is Oregon's left tackle, Josh Conerly. Let's pause right here because this is another player like Josh Simmons that I could see the Browns getting a little bit later in the first 2 days, possibly the 33rd overall pick. If Simmons is gone at this point and the Browns want to go with an offensive lineman, I think there's a lot to like about Conerly. For one, he plays left tackle, and we saw how well it went moving from Jed Wills from right tackle to left tackle. So here's a guy that plays the position and has played it well for 2 straight seasons. He's pretty quick and fluid. I know at 313 pounds, you probably don't expect a lot of movement from him, but he can get to the second level very well. After that, we have East Carolina corner, Chevron Revelle, who has very little tape because he missed almost all of 2024, but he's got great traits, and teams love traits at the corner position. Then a couple of Buckeyes, followed by Caleb Johnson. Let's pause once more on Johnson because here's another possible 33rd overall draft pick. I like Caleb Johnson a lot. I think he reminds me of David Montgomery a little bit from the Lions. The Hawkeyes had no passing game last year, and they ran into a lot of stacked boxes. And despite that, he puts up 1,500 yards and runs over 8 defenders for some big, big gains. There's a lot to like, and I've probably said that one too many times, but it's true with Johnson. He probably doesn't have the top-end speed to really hit that extra gear and rip off an 80-yard touchdown run, but Nick Chubb supposedly didn't have that top-end speed, right, coming out of Georgia, and well, we know how well that aged. So, yeah, I think there is some really good traits and just production from Johnson to look into for that 33rd pick. Another running back to watch for, Omarion Hampton out of UNC. Back-to-back dominant years for him without Drake May this past season. Some people thought, that might be tough because now people are going to stack the box with May no longer under center. No, he puts up more yards than he did this season before with Drake May as his quarterback. Same average and same touchdown. So a lot of people thought, this could be a little bit of a dip for him with Drake gone now. Not the case. Similar to Johnson, they're almost identical size and weight. They are bruising running backs. They are guys who fight for the extra yard. They are not scat backs. They are not gadget players. They are not little speed demons. They're not Demetric Felton. That's a random Brown player right there. Nope, they are players that you do not want to see in the hole. We've got Mason Taylor, a tight end from LSU. I said they might go tight end later in the draft. I don't think they'll go that early, though. A run of another player at the tight end position, Jahdae Barron. He did everything in Texas' secondary. I like him a lot as a prospect, but I don't think the Browns are going to prioritize the DBs this early in the draft. Then we've got another Buckeye. There's 8 Buckeyes in the top 50. There's a lot of them. So no surprise they won the national championship this past season. And then to round out the top 50 here, Xavier Watts, the safety from Notre Dame. Alfred Collins, a good DT out of Texas. Jaden Higgins, if you want to sound smart for who's a sleeper in this draft, there's a lot to like around his game coming out of Ames, Iowa. And then, what do you know? Another Buckeye, and then Minnesota's left tackle for the last 3 or 4 years, Ariante Ursere. So, Let me ask you this question before we get on out of here. Which prospect do I need to check out? Who is like your favorite guy that's like a round 2, round 3 player that I need to do some homework on? Because as soon as I do that, I'm going to see what you start to see. To wrap up today's episode, let's pick a card here. Mr. Bartkus, which card do you want to go with?
Let's go with 10 of clubs.
I'm going to say 10 of clubs. I'm thinking 4 of clubs. But don't go. That's a dumb guess. So I'm going to audible to Jack of clubs. I like that. It is a club, but it's an 8. Well, that's why you should have switched. Is that your first guess? Oh, you didn't say that. Oh, in your head. Okay, I was like, did I miss that whole conversation?
I was like, because people said before that they 8, and I was like, no, I'm going to go 10.
Yeah. Okay, that will do it for us on today's episode. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of some of the top draft prospects in the April 2025 NFL Draft.